Multiamory is part of the Erotic Awakening podcast network.
For more shows regarding alternative relationships, erotic lifestyles, and much more, check out eroticawakeningpodcastnetwork.com. Welcome to the Multiamory podcast.
The podcast for those of us who are tired of the same old relationship advice.
Whether you are polyamorous,
considering trying it,
or just want to have a better monogamous relationship,
this is the place for you to find new ideas and out-of-the-box thinking
for how to live the happiest, most fulfilling, and sexiest life possible.
On this episode of the Multiamory podcast, join us for Polyamory Book Club. We read two different new books that just came out within the last couple months. One of them is Polyamory, It's Not Complicated by Dwayne Lehman. And the other one, guys?
The other one is Wide Open by Gracie X.
What's the really long subtitle on Wide Open?
Something about, like, your marriage and stuff. Let's see. I'm looking.
Okay, now I'm going to give her...
My adventures in polyamory, open marriage, and loving on my own terms.
There you go.
There we go.
A memoir.
There we go.
A memoir.
A memoir.
And that's by Gracie X, who, if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, we interviewed a couple episodes back, specifically asking her
I think it was about a month ago,
poly
yeah.
and kids, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we finally read the book, and it is great. We really liked it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about books, discuss both of those. I read Dwayne's book, and these two read Gracie's book. Speaking of these two, who are you guys?
Oh.
I'm Emily. I'm your most... Oh, God. I'm your... yeah. I don't know.
No?
What did we talk about last time when I was here? I'm your most back host. I'm back in business.
You're our presentist.
Yeah.
Because last week you were
back in the saddle again.
Host.
She was our truantist host.
Our truantist host, that's right.
But now I'm your
right.
back assist. Nope.
Nope.
Host. Anyways.
Who are you?
I'm Jace. I'm your richest host because of all of the overtime I had to work this weekend.
Well, that's
Damn
good.
I want to be rich.
That's not bad. I know, seriously, I want to be rich.
How about you?
Am I like the most Semiticus host?
Oh my
You're in
gosh.
yet another new country.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if I can say
Every
that.
time, every week, just a new country.
I'm the Shabbatinist host.
Right.
Shabbat shalom.
Dedeker is in Israel right now.
Yes, I'm in the Holy Land. I'm officially in the Middle East, you guys.
Yeah, the middle of the East.
Middle of the East.
Yeah.
And there's camels. And Emily's very excited by that.
Uh-huh.
No, I don't know what it is. Everyone, all the women in my family were so excited. Like, I texted them.
About
I was like, hey,
camels?
there's camels. They're like, oh my God, send me camel pictures. And I'm like,
Send me an entire camel. Oh my God,
I don't
that
know. I
sounds
saw
awesome.
like two camels on the side of the road.
Did you pet them?
That sounds like the
and
start of a
love
joke.
them? So there were these two camels on the side of the road.
From Israel, there's just two camels on the side of the road. Oh, man.
One camel says to the other,
What one camel says to the other? Like,
it's hump day.
it's pretty dry out here. Oh,
It's not hump day until...
that's better.
Well, until this episode comes out.
It's almost hump day for them because Dedeker was telling me that in Israel the work week is Sunday through Thursday.
It is.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so actually tomorrow's kind of hump day, I guess. Yeah, because Shabbat, the Sabbath, starts...
Yeah, it's Friday.
It starts Friday evening through...
No, Thursday
Saturday
evening, right?
evening. No, it's Friday evening through...
Friday evening through Saturday evening?
Saturday evening, yeah. So essentially
Jesus.
Saturday is like their religious day, like how Sunday is our religious day, technically, in the States.
Yep.
So Thursday night is their Friday night.
Right.
And Sunday is like their Monday, which has like so messed with my head. Also, on top of that, they start their daylight savings time a week ahead of the States.
Whoa,
Right.
so it's happening now?
I learned...
Yeah, so they're already in
Oh,
daylight
shit.
savings.
They're already in daylight savings time.
You're actually, now you're not in daylight savings. We still are.
Well, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
they
It's
adjusted the
daylight,
clock.
not
And then,
savings.
sorry to break this to you guys
Daylight
also,
savings.
next week I'm going to be in Cappadocia. Normally, Turkey has their daylight savings time adjustment at the same time as Israel. However, because there's elections, they're pushing it back another week.
They can do that?
So
What?
the 8th is going to be their daylight savings time. So I'm going to go to Cappadocia next week and gain back that hour or lose an hour that I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. It's
one of
just
those.
Space-time continuum and everything.
time
are just going
was made up by
crazy.
human beings and it's not real. So
It's
I'm not going to
not.
talk about it anymore.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Let's talk about
Great.
Twitter.
Yeah, let's talk about Twitter. What are some shout-outs
Take it
we
away.
Okay. Let me see. All right. So shout out to Zui Moose, who retweeted us. Thank you very much, Zooey Moose. We got contacted by Kinky Staples. She's at Staples Are Fun. I guess maybe they are. I don't know
what that... Okay.
What?
Staples are fun? And
Yeah.
kinky?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, didn't you know?
That sounds
pretty
painful,
sure
guys.
that's what she means.
Painful.
Probably. But anyway, Kinky Staples says, I found you through Dan and Dawn's podcast. That's a
nice.
Erotic Awakening podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not poly myself. Tried it, didn't work so well, but I'm loving your podcast. That's nice.
That's kind.
Okay.
Thanks, Kinky.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to try it again, because usually everybody's first attempt is not so hot.
Yes,
Ours
this
was.
is true. Yeah.
Let's see. Good old The Amazing McWill, regarding our Relationship Anarchy episode, says, if Twitter is to be believed, I think the term for that anarchist group of, like, your human beings that are connected to you is a squad.
A squad.
So that sounds kind of militaristic
So
to me.
It
militant.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really does.
So you're like, yeah, my squad of people that I live with or maybe don't live with or care about and maybe do have sex with or don't have sex with in certain regards, or my squad of humans.
My squad.
My squad. I kind of like flock. My flock.
Yeah, well, flock just sounds like we're birds. Like we're little
Flocking
ducks.
this way.
Oh, guys,
What?
real quick. I've got to tell you about a YouTube show that I was just introduced to yesterday by...
Is this going on the record, or are we pausing?
This is on the record.
This is on the record,
This is
okay.
important
Is
for
that good?
everybody. Everybody needs to know this.
Okay.
It is called Monster Factory. And it's
This is a YouTube show?
It's a YouTube show. And it's these two guys, two brothers, actually, whose last name is
my brother.
McElroy.
Okay.
Yes, Dedeker, it is those brothers.
Those brothers,
This
those
is
McElroy brothers.
Two of the brothers from My Brother and Me.
Oh, it
which,
is My
as
Brother,
you
My
guys
Brother.
know, Dedeker and I love that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So this
not
is two
me.
of the brothers. They play different games, and different games with a character creator. So like Fallout 4 or Mass Effect or things like that. And they try to make the most horrific looking character that they can. It's called Monster Factory. Each episode is like 20 to 30 minutes long, but I had never seen this before, and Ava showed it to me. I was crying laughing, but there was one point, and for some reason when you said flock, it made me think of this, but at one point, because they make this horrific character, and then they just do ridiculous shit with cheat codes and stuff in the game,
Yeah.
just to kind of be ridiculous. But at one point, they punched this guy to death, and they took his like nice suit that he had. This is in Fallout 4, which is just a ridiculous game. He puts it on. He's like, "I'm gonna get my shit on fleek," and I just lost it. Like, without a context,
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either, but it does sound
basic
funny.
bitch and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, being on
Okay, so
fleek.
Monster Factory.
Having something on fleek is like stylish. It's like stylish.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us and the rest of the world. Thank you for derailing my Twitter train.
Okay, sorry, but guys, seriously, so good.
Flocking and
Okay.
fleeking? That's
Yeah,
what
so
you
Flocking,
fleek.
That's-
fleeking.
I'm gonna call my
getting us back.
I'm gonna call my
Call you what?
relationship anarchist group a fleek.
A
fleek.
fleek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your fleek. Your
Okay.
fleek and
Fleek.
flock.
Yeah, my fleek.
Okay. All right. Okay. You can do that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's relationship anarchy.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah,
Whatever you want.
exactly.
Okay, so going on. So Exploring Polyamory tweeted at us, thanking us for the follow. And they explained, one of my partners and I will be in LA soon. Would love to collaborate. So if you guys want to follow up on that.
Oh, cool.
I'll be in LA soon too.
Oh, okay. Great.
I suppose I will be as well.
So I don't know if you guys saw, but I sent out a link to this great article on Everyday Feminist talking about the 15 comments that polyamorous people are tired of getting.
Yeah, that was fun.
And
Yes.
and it's a very well written article. She's pretty on the nose about, common questions like what about jealousy or what about kids, things like that. All the really common questions. And good old Julia Von Rist on Twitter said they forgot about what about STDs. Which, that should be like a runner-up. I think that would be comment number
that is a
16.
question
That's
we
a
get a
really
lot,
common
yeah.
one. Yeah. If you want to address this really quickly, what about STDs?
Oh well,
Use a condom?
yeah. Use practice safer sex, guys.
Yeah, get tested every 6 months.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
That's something that actually in Dwayne's book he does talk about that a fair amount because he has a lot of sexual partners.
I thought you were about to say because he has a lot of STDs.
He's got tons of them. No, he doesn't, because he uses condoms with all his partners, and he actually talks about things like fluid bonding and how he's chosen not to do that for himself. That not using a condom is something that he reserves for someone if they were to decide to have kids or something. But he's like, even with my primary partners, or he doesn't even really use hierarchy that much, but even with his major partners, they'll still use condoms together, just because even if it is a small chance, it's still a small chance.
Yeah.
So why?
And you and I did that, and you, I mean, to my knowledge, still do that.
Right.
I still
do the same thing. I use condoms with all my partners, no matter how serious that relationship is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that I tend to stress to people, especially like to my clients, is it's about everybody deciding and being very clear of what level of sexual risk they're willing to take.
Yeah.
Because to some people, because people define safe sex very differently. To some people, safe sex is fluid bonding. To some people, safe sex means a condom, dental dams, rubber gloves, hazmat suits. Right. Some people, that's what safe sex is. And so, it's about that. It's about making sure that everybody knows what level of risk they're willing to take, and that everybody's comfortable with what's being practiced.
Yeah.
Yes, and exactly. And the thing that I always answer people when they ask that question as outsiders, being like, but what about STDs? The answer I always give is that the difference is that within polyamory, because you're not hiding the fact that you have other partners, this is an actual conversation that you have with a new partner and with your existing ones, is to just say, hey, well, let's talk about this. I was tested 3 months ago.
Yeah.
How about you? What were your results? What type of safe sex do you practice? Like, I do this. I use condoms with everybody, but I don't use dental dams, and that's the amount of risk I've decided to take.
Yeah.
And like that, we actually have that conversation. So it's actually statistically, polyamorous people are much more likely to use protection all the time, as opposed to people who cheat.
Yeah.
Or like, I think you're kind of pointing out a comparison to like casual dating, where you're less likely to be open about like, well, I'm having sex with 2 other people, and this is the level of safe sex where they're having.
Or I'm having sex with someone who does have an STD or an STI, for example.
Yeah. Well, Dwayne...
Or I had unsafe sex with that person. And,
Dwayne talks about this in his book, actually. He's like, when I was doing the serial monogamy thing, he's like, I'd use condoms usually the first couple times with a new partner, and then I wouldn't after that. He's like, but in polyamory, I use them all the time because I'm more aware of it. I understand that I could potentially have more partners and that they'll have more partners, and I've decided that my like level of consent I would like to give to my risk. Like he frames it a lot in consent. But like the level of consent that he wants to give is that he's like, you know what, that makes sense. Like that, then I don't have to worry as much about what you're doing, but this is the choice I'm going to make for my own safety.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So then just a little bit more Twitter. So moving on, we got a comment from Lindsay at LNZ Catnip, and she was responding to this article as well. So coming from the mono-poly side of things, so it sounds like she's in a mono-poly arrangement. Okay. Number 10 and 15, I think I get the most when trying to explain my situation to friends. And number 10 is, well, surely your partner's just taking advantage of you. And I can totally understand that would probably be something like very difficult to defend if it is a one-sided arrangement.
Sure.
Even if you're happy, that it is hard to assure your friends and family, like, no, like, I totally agree to this and I am happy. So I understand that being hard. And 15 is just the jealousy question.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for Twitter. So we got a couple comments also.
So we got a comment from Zach on our episode 40, the Relationship Anarchist Cookbook.
We're old 40.
I know, right? And he said, happy episode anniversary. I liked how you guys looked at this topic and acknowledged that many people have this diverse interpretation of what relationship anarchy is. When I first realized that I am multiamorous / polyamorous, I love that people are using this term, by the way.
Yeah, it's good.
The first person I thought of outside of my marriage that I love and cherish is my best friend of 30 years. We grew up together and love each other. We're both straight, cisgendered men, but I realized that I feel the same way about him as I may about a partner. He's a huge part of my life, and we have a committed relationship where we will hang out, talk, and or text each other all the time, sleepovers, camping trips, rescuing on the side of the road, etc. My wife knows that if he calls and needs help, I will be there at the drop of a hat, the same way that I would do for her. This is the type of relationship that doesn't really fit into polyamory, but everything fits in relationship anarchy. So I just wanted to say thanks for talking about this and giving voice to us who have very important relationships that cannot easily be categorized or defined. Love you guys. P.S. Missed Emily on the podcast. Tell her we love her too.
Aww.
So they love you.
That's sweet.
And then he also left a comment on our relationship baggage claim episode, which just said, great episode, guys. It's good to be reminded that my baggage is optional. Sometimes forget I am carrying it and just need to drop it off already.
Don't we all, mister?
Yeah,
Don't we all?
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Check that shit. Don't carry it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny coming from you, the person who never wants to check any baggage.
I never want to check anything. I like having carry-ons, but
you're giant carry-on.
Last thing that I also want to talk about is we got an email a couple of weeks ago from a woman who's running a Kickstarter campaign for a co-op in Boston, which is also kind of like an intentional community as well. It's called the Canopy Co-op, and I just kind of wanted to let you guys know. Look them up, kind of Google Canopy Co-op. You'll probably find their Kickstarter campaign. And they're creating a housing co-op that's not only kid-friendly, but also kind of queer and poly-friendly as well. And so, they're not trying to create like just a poly commune or just a family commune, but they're really trying hard to get some funding for a commune, or not a commune, a co-op, that would be welcoming of all these different kind of lifestyles, different family structures, different arrangements. So if you go to canopycoop.weebly.com.
Yeah,
you can find more information about them.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, what do you got for us for multi-riffery?
Oh, this one was funny. This is via Reddit, the reddit.r/sex.
Some kind of web address.
Some kind of webs.
So this person, I think that this is a female. Yeah, she says.
Wait, hang on 1 second. This is from the sex subreddit?
Yes, the sex subreddit.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
It's an inquiry from a female. She says, "Weed turns me on, and I have no idea why." I've been with my current significant other for almost 2 years now, and he smokes weed, usually for stomach issues and because we're bored. I've become an avid smoker longer than I've been with him, and we both really enjoy being stoned together. And that being said, I've discovered in the last ... 9 months or so that watching my significant other smoke is the sexiest fucking thing. Oh. He abuses it a lot, and I love that he accepts and fulfills my weird fetishes for me, but I'm seriously wondering if anybody can explain why it's so hot to me. If it helps at all, I've kindly... Oh, she just talks about her foot fetish, and that was adopted from her significant other, so maybe I'm just a creature of habit, and I adopt things I love about the man I love. Who knows? Hope someone out there can explain it.
Hang on. So she's not turned on by smoking herself. She's turned on by watching him smoke?
I was misled by the topic.
So no, it's actually that she's turned
him smoke.
Yeah, she's turned on by like watching him smoke. I don't know why.
Well, okay.
Well, hang on. No. I have to. Okay, so is it that she's determining that she's turned on, and she's also stoned at this point where she determines that it's hot to watch him smoke, or can she be like sober?
She is an avid smoker. And then I don't think she's ever sober.
No, exactly. She says there's nothing better than high sex, especially high sex with someone you love as I love him.
Okay, you guys, I know that Back to the Future Day happened pretty recently, and I have the suspicion that this was actually myself in college who somehow came to the future to write this Reddit post.
Really?
Okay.
Yes, because I was a little stoner chick in college, and because of the person that I was with, and actually that was something that I was really surprised by. That actually high sex was like really, really nice.
No, it's great.
Getting high anymore.
I don't.
Some people
I'm exactly the same. I don't enjoy getting high anymore, but high sex is really good.
I will never forget that time we watched Game of Thrones, and I was crying because
they got to the top.
To the top of the wall, and they looked over.
Were you high?
Yes.
We were so fucking high. Oh my god, it was really crazy.
Just to give a disclaimer, we're not encouraging any illegal activities. Everything's up to your own discretion. We're not really stoners, but I guess we do occasionally.
Apparently, we've had some experiences.
Seriously, with the green
I've had like maybe 5 experiences, like total being high and all on edibles. And that was like my favorite one, even though we felt like shit for like the next 2 days.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. So you cried, why?
Well, because we were watching the episode The Wall.
Because Jon Snow and Ygritte finally got to the top of the wall.
They like had this harrowing experience, like, climbing to the top of the wall, and they got up there and they were in love, and
there was this beautiful set extension that they were looking out at.
And seriously, like, when you're high, that shit looked so gorgeous and glorious.
Yeah.
And it was extremely moving.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say it was really lovely.
I have to say that the first episode, the only episode of Game of Thrones I've ever watched. I watched the first episode and I was extremely high. I don't remember any of it, and I've never come back to revisit it.
That's what I was going to say, though, is we actually did go back and rewatch the episode the next day because we didn't remember what happened.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, and when I watched it, I was like, I cried at that shit? Okay.
Right, and it was not nearly as moving the second time around.
No,
that's true.
But it was in the moment. Damn.
Okay, but the question is, though, were you turned on?
So was I turned on? No, I couldn't do anything.
Okay, no, yeah. Okay, guys, here's
Hello,
the thing.
Mister.
If there are any children listening to this show, you should probably stop right now.
Yes.
Sorry,
children.
Because I'm going to lay some truth on you.
Okay.
Wait, do you think children can't handle the truth?
Truth.
I think.
Or you're about to lay some vulgar truth on us, is what you're about to say.
No, you'll see. You'll understand.
Okay.
I'm going to lay some truth on you guys. I know we've all been told something else since we were children, but the actual fact is that smoking looks really sexy. Breathing smoke out of your mouth.
That's a very controversial statement.
But
I know. That's why I told the kids to stop listening.
But that's like...
All right, kids, you can unplug your ears.
Cigarette smoking that you're speaking of.
But I think it's a human breathing smoke out of their mouth. There's something hot about that.
No, do you think that's like actually like a thing, or do you think that's just because of us being socialized from movies from the 50s and stuff like that?
I don't think so. I didn't watch a lot of older movies like that.
Well,
but I mean, that image has still been in like our culture of like, I don't know, the sexy James Dean type who like always has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, like, or Clint Eastwood.
See, that's the thing. Like, I never, like growing up, especially, like, I didn't watch any of those movies. I didn't watch any James Dean movies. Like, I don't feel like that was part of my culture growing up. You know, I watched PBS and Nickelodeon, and
but you're not turned on by Gak.
I'm not turned on by
Or
Gak,
maybe you are.
Maybe he is.
Well,
Rubik's Tetris right here, it's the last comment, says that weed reduces testosterone in males and increases it in females. Simple as that. It's also one of the reasons why I stopped smoking. I'm male. I don't know if that's true or what the science besides behind. I want to.
Yeah, I have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I should ask my dad about that. Because he does research with weed, actually. Well,
does he really?
He does. He's a neurobiologist, a neurobiology professor. But he has published some interesting stuff recently. Like his thing he's been working on is that he discovered that there is a cannabinoid receptor in the neuromuscular junction. So basically that.
Multi-science, right?
That there's a receptor for cannabis.
Oh, okay.
In the neuromuscular junction, not just in our brains. Like it actually affects our bodies as well. And he discovered this receptor. I guess I could be butchering this science here.
Weed doctor.
Well, so that's the joke.
No,
is that there's
like,
no
did
actual
this discovery
weed.
get named after him for like the receptor? Is it called the like Lindgrenus receptorus?
Yeah,
weed smokingus.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just named it the cannabinoid receptor.
Oh.
Well, no, this receptor was already known. I think it just wasn't known that it was in the neuromuscular junction.
I see.
That we only thought it was in the brain, maybe? I don't quite understand. But anyway, he would be a person to ask. There is no weed in his office, except for that his students have in their bags, probably.
When they enter his office.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's funny.
Anyway...
So anyways,
so you know what I would say to this person here, and this is something that maybe we can talk about on a whole other episode at some point, but I say like why would you worry about something that turns you on about someone you love?
She's just like, she's saying that this is a
curious,
weird,
maybe.
that maybe this is a weird fetish to her, and
I feel
why
like
would
lots
this
of
be
us
a thing?
can get excited by weird,
kind of,
like
people
quote,
are,
weird things.
Yeah, people are turned on by very different things.
As long as it's not like
killing a person,
destroying your life.
Yeah,
you know, it's not lowering
you're not, like,
the quality
doing
of your
heroin
life
or something, and that turns you on.
You're not like, oh my god, it's so hot when he like jams a needle into his arm and passes out.
I mean, fuck, right. I'm sure there are people out there who do get turned on by that. Although you can't get it up when you are on heroin. There's no fucking way.
Do you know this for sure?
I don't know it from from
that's
for
our next episode of Multi-Mythbustery, we are going to try getting an erection while on heroin.
Oh my goodness.
That's not true.
The children, Jace.
The children. Jesus. I told them that they could listen again.
This is our druggiest episode.
Yeah.
Druggiest.
We should probably put a disclaimer on our episode saying that children should not listen to this.
It's mature on like iTunes, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah,
we are rated
explicit. We're freaking explicit.
So. Yeah.
This
for mature.
Yeah. This is the compact disc my mom would not let me buy as a kid.
Right? Along with a lot of other shit.
Let's do it. Sex toys. I would like to buy them.
Sex toys. So you should go to adamandeve.com.
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about some things that I need to buy.
There you go.
Yes.
I'm going to go to adamandeve.com and use the promo code MULTI, MULTI, which will get you 10 free gifts.
Woo! One is a sexy surprise for her.
Something is for him to enjoy.
Something that the both of you can enjoy.
And then 6 adult films on DVD. And the 10th thing is free shipping on the whole order. The whole shebang.
And you'll also help support us.
Yes. You will help support your favorite polyamory podcast.
Yeah.
Multiamory.
Anyway.
We should talk about some books.
Yeah, let's talk about
some
books. It's time for book club. Ready? Here we go.
Poly Book Club.
Songs I know I did, forcing me to form myself to fit. You know they scrape the world.
All right, guys. So over this weekend, we each read some books. The two of you guys
feverishly read
Gracie X's book Wide Open, and I read Dwayne Lehman's book Polyamory: It's Not Complicated. Which is supposed to be a sort of a pun on the Facebook status that you can put your relationship as it's complicated.
Can you still do that these days?
I'm not sure if
still
you
do
can
that
anymore. I'm not sure.
That's so early 2000s.
Yeah.
Really
I was very surprised reading his book how current it is, because it just came out.
Well, it just came out. Yeah.
And that it's self-published, as opposed to like Dedeker's book will be going through a publisher, so there's like a 9-month lead time between when she...
No, the book's going to be published like 20 years from now, basically.
Right, basically.
I hope not.
Yeah, but because his is self-published, it's it came out very close to when it was written. So like his cultural references to like movies that he's gone to see and stuff like that are things that were just within this last year. So that was sort of like, oh. Like it would kind of surprise me actually, maybe because I'm used to reading all these other poly books that are written, 10 years ago,
80s or whatever. Yeah.
But it was just sort of, it was like jarringly current.
Slut.
Yeah. And like he talked about online dating a little bit, and it's just like, yep, that's exactly currently what's happening in online dating. It's not this.
Well, it's a little different with Gracie's book. I think it sounds like this was maybe like early 2000s when this was all going down. Perhaps.
Well, because hers is a story about the past.
This is the way that I think it actually did happen about 4 to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because
so just to let the listeners know, so Gracie's book, it's not really a guidebook to polyamory. It is a memoir. She tells her personal story of kind of getting first in contact with polyamory, opening up her marriage with her husband, and everything that kind of ensues after that.
Yeah.
So hers is more of a narrative.
It is a narrative, yeah. But is she, in a recent blog post, she said that her daughter is now, I think, 15 or 16, and her daughter in the book was 10. So that's 10, how I'm thinking of the timeline here.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, but I really, really enjoyed this book. It's clearly a book about a woman. It not necessarily just for women, but I think that it is it's a very like female-centric driven book, which is wonderful because, as we've seen, there's not too much of that out there. But this really is about that, which is great.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean,
there's not too much of that out there.
I guess there is, but Dedeker wants to make a book for the Smart Girl's Guide to Polyamory, right?
As far as when we
and
look
this
at
is
something
not
like
I
this,
feel like the polyamory book world is dominated by women.
So far, it kind of has been.
It kind of has been, yeah.
Absolutely. Name.
But is
like the only male authors of anything about polyamory.
Franklin
Vo
yeah.
and Christopher Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not
definitely.
even about polyamory necessarily.
Yeah, well, and this isn't necessarily even about polyamory.
But I mean, as far as
either.
but telling her own personal story in this way, I
There's
think
not like
this
a
is still
memoir of the
relatively
woman,
unique.
yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of that here.
It
and
is.
Something that I really liked. Obviously, she's very open and she's very vulnerable in her writing. And she's definitely not afraid to talk about her insecurities and to talk about when things went bad, and at certain points it gets really ugly and really complicated, and she's just very upfront about that. Something that I really liked, honestly, was it was nice to feel myself like really emotionally invested in the story as well.
I really was
with a really
as well.
unique situation of like, oh, what's going to happen like when her husband goes on his first date, like actually being on the edge of my seat about that, because
Nice.
like there's no narratives out there really around that, and so it was really nice to be able to relate to these things, certainly. To kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, Emily, I think that what really stood out for me is that it's obviously it's like she herself, just talking about her own life, is this very strong, very big quote unquote character, as it were, a very big personality, and she's very, very sexually driven.
Incredible.
And I think that, hearing a story from a woman who has a very high sex drive, who's very comfortable with herself and her body and her needs, talking about that very candidly and openly, I think that's something that we don't have a lot of.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories about mothers and about like what it is to be a mother and a woman in your middle age or your 40s, but not necessarily someone who also cares deeply about maintaining their sexual identity and about like expanding it and furthering it. Because she talks about like how once you reach a certain age and once you're married and once you've had children, you're kind of supposed to just stop being sexual, and like how marriage often kind of gets rid of that entirely, and how her friends, they're just like, well, I'm not sexual anymore and I'm okay with that. I've like moved on from that part of my life. It's over now.
Yeah,
and she
talked
just
about that.
said, no, I'm not gonna do that. And this is kind of her version of how she kept that sexuality alive in her life.
Well,
by
there's
sort of becoming
particular
polyamorous.
quote like connected to that, because something that drives like one of the big things that drives her to open her marriage is that her sex drive is a lot higher than her husband's. That they're I mean, at the time they opened their marriage, they'd already been together 20 years. So clearly they're very closely bonded. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of history there, but they just have always had this mismatched sex drive. And she talks about that. She talks about talking to her friends and her friends being like, no, like my husband and I don't have sex anymore, but it's okay. Like sex isn't everything. And I've kind of funneled that energy into my children. And hang on, let me find this quote. She talks about how, so she said, if I didn't get some action, I would become half of one of those unhappy couples. I had a frightening image of myself, an old woman, maneuvering my walker down the sidewalk, making bitterly sarcastic quips, as Hank hobbled behind me, my adult children muttering quietly, they should have divorced years ago.
Yeah,
no, thank you. Opening
that.
my marriage was worth the risk. And she talks about how, like, yes, making this choice is a risk, but she didn't want to not take the risk just for the sake of, like, saying that we got to, like, the 50-year mark.
Yeah.
Even
like
though we don't
staying
have
together for
sex
the
and we're not
kids.
happy with each other, but hey, we got to 50 years.
Yeah.
That she was willing to risk possibly losing it, rather than settling for the stability of
and this
of
goal
just
oriented
longevity
mindset.
if it's not happy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's see. Essentially, she has this like really powerful love story between herself and her husband now, which is Oz. And they go through a lot of like back and forth between the two of them, and a lot of time you don't think that they're going to get together, and there's a lot of things kind of rooting against them, but then eventually they do, and eventually her husband in the book, Hank, moves in, or both of their lovers, I guess, move into like a duplex. They essentially make like this 4-person household with the kids, with 4 kids as well. So there were 8 of them living there together for 4 years, correct?
Yeah. And it was, I mean, it's interesting, like, because it sounds like, like obviously they were just trying to find a way, because she and her husband weren't having sex anymore, but they didn't want to have a divorce. They still loved each other very much. And this was their best way of being able to connect with both their lovers and make sure that their kids were raised in this really healthy, 2-parent and actually, multi-parent home.
Household.
And what's interesting, and obviously Gracie talked about this in her interview, but her daughter, her daughter is 10 years old at the time. She has 2 kids, but her daughter is the oldest, and the
Really
reactions from
precocious
her
kid.
daughter were fascinating. I mean, her daughter's
really
very
were.
smart and very with it, like immediately called her mom, because for a while they were trying to not like tell their kids what was going on, but her daughter like immediately figured it out, even went so far as to like read her mom's texts on her phone.
I know, and kind of figured out what was going on.
And she was very... Well, so the interesting thing is her daughter was very upset by her mom getting involved with Oz. However, at this point, Hank, Gracie's husband, had already been involved with his lover, Valerie for several years. And Valerie had kind of already been accepted into the home. And so it was interesting that her daughter, like, totally was fine with Valerie being around, but had a really hard time with mom actually having somebody else around.
Yeah, it was like this weird double standard of the mom. It wasn't okay at all, but the father could be like the sexual being, but once the mother is, that suddenly like becomes taboo for whatever reason. Like, and this girl is 10.
Yeah, she mentions a story like at her daughter's birthday party, like, and this is a point when everybody's living together. Yeah, that her daughter suddenly freaks out before, and she's like, Mom, like Oz can't be here. Oz can't be here. Because something that her daughter struggled with was being normal. Like that was something that was the hardest part for her. Was like none of my friends' parents are doing this. Like like this is embarrassing. This isn't normal. But it was okay for Valerie to be there. And so Gracie kind of points out the fact that it's like it's okay for there to be multiple women in the home, especially if they're there like serving food.
Yeah, she's like, it's fine if we're like giving food and serving the kids. Yeah, but multiple
for
men
there
is weird.
To be multiple men in the home, then that's weird. Yeah.
I do, just to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
I want to throw out yes, I do think that there is that cultural double standard that we have that I'm sure a 10-year-old would have. But you did say that Valerie came into their family 3 years before that, right?
Well, I think 3-ish, maybe 2.
Yeah, sure. But Oz had always like kind of been in her life as well. And when they opened
Oz,
everything
technically,
up.
Oz had been the family had been exposed to Oz like
for
before Valerie
years,
came
even
into
before
the picture.
that. Yeah.
Well, so what I'm getting at though is that if the fact of her dad having a relationship with this woman was introduced to her when she was 7. And perhaps that relationship was actually presented more clearly as just
actually it wasn't. That's actually a thing because when the daughter's starting to get upset about her mom and Oz, she reveals like, well, at least Dad and Valerie don't have sex. And that's when Hank had to be like, actually this is, and that was also upsetting to the daughter. So something that I do want to point out, I think this is a good story, and I like the way she tells it, and she's very open and she's honest. Something that I would want to point out is that, polyamory in general gets criticized for being something that's only for like privileged white people. And this is definitely kind of coming from that perspective.
A bunch of privileged white people.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, and it's good. Like, it's good because, like, something that I noticed in the book is, like, these people are constantly in therapy. Whether it's, like, specialized polytherapy or children's therapy or couples therapy, like, they're constantly going to therapy, and, like, that's a great thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with therapy. But, most people who approach polyamory are not necessarily people who have the money to always go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like, opening your relationship is tough in and of itself, and sure, it'd be a lot easier if everyone could afford to like have a bunch of help along the way. However, not everybody can, and so that is something that I guess I would say to give a grain of salt to anybody who's reading it, is that unfortunately we can't always afford to have a therapist for every single little mishap, and a lot of us kind of have to improvise and kind of figure these things out on our own.
I mean, I do applaud the amount of work that all of these people seem to have done on themselves. That like she talks about how she constantly is striving to like for self-betterment, and that Oz, her current husband, when he met her, kind of started doing the same thing because he looked to her as an example for that, which was great.
So something that I kind of want to ask you guys about and also talk about is just, so if we're talking to our listeners now about this book, is like, it's not a how-to guide about polyamory.
No.
It's a memoir about this woman's experience
opening up her
marriage.
Yeah, in order to retain
but
and
from talking to you guys and from hearing about this, it doesn't actually sound very much like polyamory to me. It sounds like some other kind of open.
Well, so it is kind of another kind of open relationship, and something that she actually addresses in the book is that, you know, she found herself not liking the monogamy label, not even really liking the poly label,
right?
But that when she just looked at her values, is she really wanted to just have an innovation of relationship, which is I really like that, you know, because she really just wanted to figure out, like, there has to be a way that I can, like, have my husband, not split up my family, have the person that I want as a lover, have my husband be able to have a lover, and all of us to be able to take care of our kids and have everybody be happy. And the currently, like, culturally accepted models weren't going to allow for all of those things to happen. And so for her, like, this is a story of her, like, personal growth and journey into figuring out, you know, how am I going to innovate how I conduct my relationships? And where she ends up, like, isn't how we would, I think, define poly classically right now, you know, because at the time, like, she was technically kind of like in a monogamous relationship with her new lover, just cohabitating with her husband and his lover as well. But that is something that I like, you know, especially since, I mean, our tagline is relationships outside the box, you know, and so it's kind of like, regardless of what the format is, you know, it's about having the courage to figure out what it is that you want and to be able to go for that. And what came to mind for me as far as, like, recommending it to people, what came to mind was to recommend it to certain clients of mine who are having particular issues with jealousy, because of the fact that actually it was very relatable, the things that she was talking about, because she especially goes through this whole journey of, like, you know, like feeling a lot of compersion for her husband, but also some jealousy, and then sometimes that would totally fall apart, and she'd be like, oh god, I thought that I was, like, this amazing poly person, like, what's happening to me? You know, just to have something very relatable of, like, jealousy sometimes crops up even when you think you've got it all figured out. So I think that's I think is probably the most accessible point for most people approaching this book.
Yeah, and that it, again, like, especially for people who are in their 40s or 50s or who just want to maintain their sexuality later on in life, even in spite of, like, all of the social stigma saying that we shouldn't be and that that's not a thing that is done, she really is, like, fighting to keep that in her life. She's extremely sexual and just wants to stay happy in that way and not, like, and, you know, make her relationships dynamic and not just stay so stagnant.
Yeah, I think, and she's definitely very inspiring as far as that arena goes. You know, a very inspiring figure of a woman who, like, knows what she wants and wants to go after it and is not afraid to get creative.
Yeah, and she really wants to have it all. Like, in I think in her mind, this is her example of getting to have it all, which is so cool. Because you don't have to settle, and she didn't settle. So anyways, we loved it. Well done, Gracie.
You should read it.
Yeah, it was really compelling, and I cried at the end, and it was lovely. Aww. So well done, hormonal May. Always.
So you read the boys' book?
Yes,
I read at least that's how I've been thinking about it in my mind.
We're the girls.
Basically, I know we really did fall into the gender binary on this particular episode. That's actually interesting is that there's a section of Dwayne's book which is called Polyamory, It's Not Complicated, and he has actually a whole section where he talks about orientation and gender. And so what's interesting about this, let me give you a little preface first. So this book is written basically, there's stuff in it for everyone, but the target audience for this is cisgender, male, heterosexual, alpha males.
That was like, you said male twice, so like extra male.
Extra male. Males. Double male.
All males.
For double males.
Double males. So
all the testosterone.
Right. So cisgender, meaning born a male, still identify as male. Heterosexual, alphas. And he actually does have a section.
And he explicitly states this?
Yes, he does explicitly state this. There's a whole section talking about it. He talks about how within polyamory, alpha males, but just alpha personalities in general, tend to be underrepresented, and something that most people don't think of when they think polyamory. They think they think beta, which is more about like beta. He identified as like stability, comfort, like cuddling, affection, and alpha.
I think it's more of like a cooperative versus competitive kind of dynamic.
Interesting.
No. That's the thing, is that he specifically describes like the traits of an alpha, which I thought were very interesting. And he's like, there are alpha females as well, and he gives some examples of. I forget what her name is, but the CEO of Yahoo is a woman. You know, very alpha personality. But the basically what he was saying is that like the alpha personality is someone who speaks their mind, is very direct, is a leader, tends to be a leader, and also tends to be more physically present, more like physically strong, and that when it comes to sexual relationships are much more direct, are much more like the feeling you get being with an alpha is like, oh god, they like really want me, like I do something to them that makes them just want to like devour me.
So you just think like just aggressive.
I don't like the word aggressive because I think it has
I'm just asking because
it.
like as far as the whole like alpha beta theory of human beings in general, I go back and forth on whether like I kind of agree with that or not, and so I'm just kind of trying to needle a little bit, I guess.
Right. So I would not say aggressive, because he talks about it though. It can be though, and this is what he talks about is sort of using caution if you are this sort of alpha type. That, for example, with other males in polyamorous groups, in your polycule, as it were. That if what manifests is just your sort of physical, more aggressive nature, your more competitive nature, you can destroy the social unity of a poly group.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas if you embrace your compassionate side but still are that leader, you can be a role model and you can be someone who helps group cohesion. And that also alphas have a very defensive trait. And so like if someone within your polycule is, you know, has someone who's being a creep or, you know, they're in a bad situation, you're the one people go to be the one to come in and be like, you better get out of here or I'm going to fuck you up. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so there is that.
I get that makes sense.
Side.
I do want to know, is there any male out there who thinks that they're beta?
Yeah. Absolutely.
From
I'm
reading
sure.
his description, I kind of think I am.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I mean, really, when we had a quad, I thought that one of the main problems was that both of you were not betas, that both of you were alphas, and that's why you guys butted heads so much.
Clarify,
honestly, my problem with it is that I feel like people have moments of being alpha and moments of being beta.
Well, yes,
you know?
that's what I was just going to say. Is he does address
that I think
too.
It switches
he does
depending
address
on
that
your
too.
dynamic and who you're
yeah,
around.
with
that we all have all of this inside of us, and that some people just fall a little more heavily on one side or the other.
Yeah.
But basically, what he's saying is, in being polyamorous, you don't have to disengage that alpha side of yourself. There are positive ways to manifest that, and it can be a really good thing, both for your partners and for your poly community in general.
Okay.
I see.
So anyway,
sorry.
the point I was trying to make here, I don't even remember. What was I saying? Oh yes, he was talking about orientation. And it's interesting because he writes this book from this point of view that the language he uses tends to be a little bit crude. It's not very flowery, romantic language. It's a little more sexual. It's a little dirtier.
So it's a little more gruff.
It's a little more gruff. He is intentionally, in my opinion, trying to write it in a way that people who do identify with that more, I guess I would call it primal, but like that more aggressive side of their nature can read it and identify with it. But
so he's trying to be what the hell's that guy's name? The guy who wrote I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
Oh, I don't know.
What's that asshole's name?
I don't know.
That alpha gruff douchey asshole writer guy.
I have no idea. But anyway, so what's interesting about it though is he's writing it all in this style and from this point of view. But he also talks about how he personally identifies as bisexual, even though he's writing the book more from this heterosexual point of view. But he identifies as bisexual. He also talks about how he is a cisgender male, but he is aware of the fact that he is a cisgender male, and he actually really likes dating trans people. So it's interesting because he like seems like the guy that you start to want to put him in this box. Again, we're back to the boxes.
Yeah.
That you're gonna want to put him in this box of like, ugh, like this is the kind of guy that I don't want in poly because like it's just all about the sex for him, whatever. But when you read it, like you understand that's like, okay, he's just using this very different type of language and this very different type of communication from what I'm used to when talking about polyamory. And so I think it's a book that would be very interesting for someone that does like really struggle with the type of, like in Gracie X's book, she's Wiccan or pagan or what?
She's pagan.
Pagan. Like there's a lot of that. There's also a lot of sort of hippie like energy talk.
Yeah.
We do that sometimes. Like we're not real intense on it, but we get a little bit woo woo sometimes.
A little bit woo woo. Just a dash of the woo woo.
Right. But so that's something that he talks about, that he's really a voice that's very much not that.
Yeah.
And it does take this sort of more aggressive yet compassionate at the same time approach to polyamory.
Nice.
Which I think is really interesting. So especially if you're someone who struggles with the type of language normally used in talking about polyamory, I'd say check it out.
Well, I mean, that is something because I've heard actually from a lot of like straight men that it's hard to get into the ethical slut because it's written by two old lesbians.
Right.
And we love old lesbians, but when they're talking, especially in the ethical slut, when they're talking about like get in touch with your sexy side, like try on different fabrics to take care of yourself. Like it's hard for most cisgendered alpha males to get into that.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this a little bit when we did our metamors episode a while ago. But something that he talks about in his chapter on metamors is that realizing that your metamors, so your partner's other partners, that you both want the same thing, that they're on your team, that it's in your best interest for them to be as happy as possible. And so you want to support them. You want to give them that support, give them understanding in terms of scheduling. It's like if, he gives an example of if your partner has something scheduled on Tuesday with them and Wednesday with you and then Friday with them and Saturday with you, that doesn't mean by default that Thursday is yours. Maybe the other guy doesn't have another day free next week, and so he wants to see her Thursday. So he gives these examples of that, like, be compassionate, because the happier your metamors are, the happier your partner is, and the better things are for everybody.
Yeah.
I found that section to be actually pretty moving.
Really?
To just think about that's the situation I would like, and it's not always that way. Unfortunately, there is a lot of negative competition. But I thought it was interesting, again, to put it in perspective of someone who you might identify as a little more aggressive alpha, that he's like, guys, like, come on, like, cooperation is the thing. Like, this is what we want to do. That's sort of an example of what I mean about being, speaking in this more gruff way, yet the message is still about understanding and compassion.
I mean, when you think of men in polyamory, you don't really think of like really alpha males.
Exactly.
You think
That's
of
what I think
people
is really
who will
interesting.
kind of acquiesce and just be like, "Oh, you can, I'll take her this day. You take her that
because
day."
you don't think of you think of an alpha male like being okay with having a lot of bitches,
Right.
but not being okay with those bitches having their
a
own
lot of
bitches
men.
or
Exactly.
dudes or whatever.
And Dwayne, from reading it, I mean, he's very, very much an alpha male. He's also like a black belt in some form of martial arts, and is very physical, very a very physical presence. Is very into like being a dom in the BDSM scene. Like he's very alpha, but he was in a number of relationships before he became polyamorous, when he was doing swinging and other sorts of open relationships, where the rule was that only other men could join in the situation, and there couldn't be other women.
Really?
And he ended up being very unhappy with the unfairness of those and the double standards. And he has a whole section where he rants about single gender rules within couples. And what's interesting though is that his experience, he rants about guys that will allow other women but not other men. But he's like, but I've been on the other side of that. He's like, I've had two different, I think one of them was a marriage too. So like years of this, of being in a situation where it was only other men were allowed in group stuff.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting, because you don't hear that perspective very often, and you wouldn't imagine that from an alpha male.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Something I was thinking about when you guys were talking about Gracie X's book.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think comes up a lot when people are just first trying out polyamory, is the honesty part of it can be really hard. You know, because it's not something we're used to being honest about. It's not something we're used to being so open about. And what he talks about is that we all make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes when we try poly, and just in general. We will forever make mistakes. We can't really avoid that.
In everything.
In everything.
Yeah.
And what he says is, he's like, to use the analogy of having children, he has a son who he talks about a lot in the book. Like, his son is like the center of his world.
Well, yeah.
And he says, when we have children, they make mistakes. They do things that are wrong, and it doesn't really bother us. But when they get to that age when they learn to lie to us about it, that's when it hurts.
That's when it really hurts us.
Yeah. And so he talks about how it's not the mistakes we make. It's not the mistakes we make that are the problem. It's the lies we tell. And this comes up a lot in he gives a lot of negative examples in the book of things that went wrong, of relationships that he had that went badly, of mistakes that were made. Personally, I think he leans a little too hard on the negative side. I would have liked a little bit more positive stories. But they were very interesting, and I did see a lot of things in them where I'm like, wow, this is much more extreme than anything that's happened to me. But I have had that same thing happen.
Huh. That's really interesting.
Wait, what?
No, just that's an interesting observation. I'm like, oh, I wonder. Yeah, now I want to read it to be like, what the fuck happened in this guy's life? No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean he had some, very, very, especially when he was trying swinging, had just horrible blow up fights many times with partners.
Oh, I see.
Over different things, and just reading it, just like, God, like, this communication is so bad, or like this trust so isn't there, or like. And he addresses these things, and like super codependent relationships. That's something that comes up a lot. Is his second wife? They had horrible problems before they ever got married. With trust and lies and honesty and communication, but they were so codependent on each other that they would do little fixes and then get married, and then have a problem, and then do little fixes, and like keep trying to do these little fixes because they just couldn't accept, or like couldn't get over that fear of being alone. I think to just say, like, my health and the health of my relationships is more important than this. And he actually phrases it in a way that I thought was very interesting when he's talking about, if you are married and if you are in a relationship and you want to be open, you want to do polyamory, if that's something that's interesting to you, is to only try to convert a relationship if you are willing to lose it. And he's like, and so this might be a decision you don't make. That's a really
interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah. He said this might be a decision you don't want to make. If you really look at your life and go, well, I've got this wife and kids, and
I'm happy with that.
Being more fulfilled and feeling more like I'm being my true self is not worth losing those things, then don't do it. But he gives the analogy of being, a gay man in the middle of Kansas or something. He's like, well, that guy has two choices. He can either be himself and be true to who he is and possibly be alone a lot of the time. Or he can say, you know what? It's more worth it for me to stay in the closet and have companionship. And that's a choice we have to make. And that's a hard choice to make, and a very personal choice to make. But he does... So he talks about that eventually that's what he got to with that second wife, is how he got to polyamory, because he was like, this isn't working. I need something else. I think I've figured out what it is. I need to do this. And she, having been the one who had, I think they were the ones that had the no other women rule. And, she'd been with all these other guys and had tons of other experiences. She's the one who just fell apart when he was going on his first date and was like, don't leave me. We can't do this. And their relationship ended in divorce shortly after that. But he's like, and we broke up. She went into another very codependent relationship, and I've been polyamorous ever since.
Wow.
That we just went our different ways because fundamentally we were not compatible in this very significant way.
Grew up a bit, and she stayed the same, which is too bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's from his point of view, so we don't really know what's going on.
Happened. Yeah, of course.
I wanted to give you guys this. So he gives a definition of polyamory.
Oh.
Okay.
That
which we've wanted for a while.
Well,
Which, by the way, is a really difficult thing to do, as
It
we've
is.
learned.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
very slippery.
this is a big discussion that Dedeker and I are peripherally involved with
exactly.
about defining polyamory.
Yeah.
So his definition, he even prefaces it by saying, this definition is going to piss a lot of people off. And he says that throughout the book. He'll be like, I'm going to say something now, and all of the people that are in polyfidelitous groups are going to hate me for this.
Really?
If you're in one of these groups, you can send an email to, crybaby at idon'tgiveafuck.com or like whatever. He's very, he's got that kind of just like,
That's funny.
I'm not going to take shit from
got that
anybody.
swagger.
like, I don't care, bitch.
That swagger.
I don't care.
So his definition is this. Polyamory is talking to who you want, seeing who you want, dating who you want, loving who you want, and fucking who you want, anywhere, anytime, without anyone demanding exclusivity limits, except for those which you voluntarily wish to give yourself to satisfy your own safe, sane, and consensual personal limits. So he takes this more aggressive stance to defining it, obviously, and that's intentional. I think his language is meant to inflame.
Yeah, of course.
And that he talks a lot about not having rules, but he talks a lot about what he calls active informed consent, or informed active consent. Sorry, which basically is that for whatever's happening in a relationship between two people, and a larger group is still just broken down into sets of two, is that consent always has to be given for what's happening in the relationship, whether it's having sex without condoms or having sex at all or having a relationship at all. Like both parties actively have to consent to doing that thing. One. Yeah. But that also they always need to be provided with the information that they need to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So if you were, so he said like he was in a relationship where he was fluid bound with one woman and was dating another one, and he ended up having sex with that second one, not using a condom. And he went back to that first one, and he said, hey, this happened. So that's the informed part, is saying, hey, I had this unprotected sex with this other person.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, well, I feel like that's a risk to my safety. Because she also had unprotected sex with her husband. So she's like, I'm not comfortable with that level of risk. So one option is we could start using condoms with ourselves if you want to continue doing that. Or you could stop using, or you could start always using condoms with her. But rather than her saying, you have to do this, rather than her putting limits on another person, because he's very against rules like we are.
Sure.
Rather than saying, you need to do this, she said, for me, my consent is that I will only do this given this situation.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like I'm threatening to leave you, but just saying, hey, for me, the decision I have to make is that I want to be safe.
Yeah.
This is what that looks like for me. It's up to you how to do that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And the choice that he ended up making, that was the moment when he decided, he's like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I understand that. I'm just going to use condoms with all my partners.
I'm just going to have sex with everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to have sex with everybody.
And he's like, I'm just going to use condoms with everybody.
Nice.
That led to him saying, you know what? I'm going to give you a third option. It's this.
Nice.
And that's what he's stuck with since then. But anyway, he talks a lot about that. Active informed consent is having the information you need, actively giving and getting consent.
In order to actually actively give consent.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I think that kind of falls into something that we talk about a lot, about communicating your relationship status before going on a first date.
Yeah.
With somebody, because I think that falls
That's
into that.
That's the informed part. Yeah.
That person can then give their consent whether or not they want to go on a date with you, or whether or not they want to continue dating with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, here's a good example. He's talking about changing for someone else. And he said, change by losing weight, quitting smoking, and stopping drinking, and be patient with yourself. Do this because you will live longer and happier. But why change your preference for blonde women because you happen to currently be in a good relationship with a brunette woman? Or why make them dye their hair? What does that accomplish? They're a partner, not a project. If you're waiting for them to become someone they are not, you are in the wrong relationship. A healthy relationship asks no one to change their own fundamental nature. Be who you are, where you are, as you are. Don't wait for someone to change to meet your expectations, nor should you put up with shit you just cannot stand. Be who you are and share what you can share with those you love. For all those areas that you don't match up, don't force it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That reminds me, there's a good piece of advice that I've frequently thought about during my life and frequently ignored when I shouldn't have. And which I also tell to my clients as well, which is, especially if there's something like a recurring problem with their partner or a recurring thing that they don't like or something that they really wish their partner would change about themselves, asking yourself the question, if my partner from this moment on, like right now in this moment, if they never changed at all, ever, would I still want to continue the relationship with them?
Yeah.
And it's a tough question to ask,
definitely.
and I've been in situations where I've both said yes to that question and both where I've been like, fuck no, to that question. But I like that.
Most people in relationships do try to change each other, like even in these little teeny tiny ways, even potentially without even knowing it. But you try to shape each other and yourselves to like fit the relationship. Instead of sort of saying like, fuck, I'm going to love this person for exactly who they are, warts and all, and just deal with it. And we'll hopefully move together in the relationship and maybe change the dynamic of that, but not necessarily like, I have to fix this person in order to be able to be with them.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have two things I'd like to leave us with from Dwayne's book.
Yeah.
Something that I liked once he got to the second half of the book when he's talking about polyamory, he does make a lot of sort of lists of like, here's 1, 2, 3 of like the steps to active informed consent.
Yeah.
Or like boom, 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 1, 2, 3. These are the rights that I believe every person should have in a relationship. Or this one is the three simple steps to determine your orientation, both for yourself and others.
Okay.
So it's number 1 is explore terminology and learn the definitions of at least 5 terms relating to gender, 5 terms relating to sexual attractiveness, meaning sexual preference, and 5 terms relating to relationship status. So like open, non-monogamous, polyamorous, hetero, flexible.
So just like educate yourself on all the different options out there.
Start by learning 5 of each of those. Learn the definitions, understand them, and then choose 1 term from each category that is closest to how you identify right now. And then talk to people you trust about these and other terms to see if they agree with your choices. Remember, it's not just about deciding who you are, but communicating to others clearly. So he talks a lot about how labels are about communicating, that they're both for organizing your own thoughts, but they're also for communicating simply to other people. So by consulting with people that you trust, you can get a sense for like, does this communicate what you think I am? Person who knows me well.
I like that.
And then the one other thing, I thought this was very cool. He says, if you're new to polyamory, which I think a lot of our listeners are, not all of them, but I think a lot of people are somewhat newer to it. And actually, I'm considering trying this myself as well. But if you're new to polyamory, leave 1 day a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on your schedule. But leave 1 day a week open to new dates, to dating someone new. He's like, and at first, say you have a partner and you guys decide to become polyamorous. He's like, it can be easy to fall into the trap of just spending every day with your current partner. He's like, so leave this 1 day free. And he's like, I suggest Wednesday. It's like Wednesday is a great middle of the week day.
Wait, hang on, just to clarify, is this specifically for people who are like opening up their relationship? Or
even if you're single,
just anyone,
even if you're single or just started dating someone or whatever, to leave 1 day a week that's your day to go on new dates. And he suggests a weekday. He says Wednesday. He's like, leave your weekends for your more significant partners so you can spend full days with them, assuming you work a normal Monday through Friday job, or Sunday through Thursday if you're in Israel. But leave 1 day a week for new dates. He's like, and he stresses the importance of keeping that sort of freshness and that excitingness of yourself, kind of like continuing to explore yourself, continuing to see what other people there are in the world, to keep your existing relationships fresh and to keep yourself from sort of becoming stagnant. And he's like, and do this, and he's like, and eventually if you end up with so many partners that you don't feel like you have time for this, you could stop it for a while, but to keep in mind that just dating is this very important thing. And that's something that definitely last year I let myself forget. Like I let myself not really date very much. And I did notice that I started to be more stressed about the relationships that I had, felt more stagnant personally, not that the relationships were necessarily stagnant, but that I was. And more recently have started dating more, and I've been explaining to my partners that this is just something that I feel like I need to do right now. And is to not just be like, okay, I've got some partners, I'm going to stick with this for now. But to say, you know what, it's important to me to be dating, to be meeting new people.
At least in this phase of your life right now.
Right. Yes. In this phase of my life right now. So anyway, I just thought that was very interesting. And I think that's actually really good advice. And actually, this was the other really good part. He's like, and if you do get to that point where you're not dating new people or you just don't have a date that week, keep that day as your day.
Yes. Like that's more what I would attach to is if you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm happy with my partners and I'm just going to stay there. Like, keep that day for yourself, for God's sake.
Right.
I've been really bad at that.
Having this one day a week that's your
entirely
day.
Yours, totally.
Or your day for going on new dates. But basically it's to keep your existing relationships from just sort of monopolizing all your time. I think it's kind of the idea.
Definitely.
Also, just a little update. I want to say that I remember I talked last time about that guy who ordered from Adam and Eve and somehow his stuff didn't come. He wrote to them and they're sending it to him.
Oh, good.
So
good.
Adam and Eve's a cool company. I'd recommend them. But yeah, if that happens to you, just contact them and they rectified their mistake.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Excellent.
So very cool. I'm glad that worked out. Happy ending. So go use the promo code MULTI, MULTI, and part of your purchase will go to help support our show. And you'll also get 10 free gifts and free shipping. So it's a win-win, win-win-win with 10 more wins.
And now, is it time for our happy ending?
And it's time that we're all going to go have a happy ending now.
Great.
We will see you guys next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.